For most of my life, fitness has been about shrinking my body, shrinking the number on the scale, shrinking down to a certain size. And now that I'm in my late 40s, that's just not the case anymore. Now I am training for strength mentally and physically. And that's really, it's changed my approach and the way that I move, but it's also changed the way that I feel. This weekend, I'll be running the Princess 10K at Disney World, and even that feels different than it did even just a few years ago because I'm not chasing a time. I'm not trying to finish within a certain amount of time. I'm looking to have fun. And all of this is just part of building resilience. So, in this video, I'm going to talk more about what that means, what that looks like, and how you might be able to apply it to your own life. So, for those of us who are in our late 40s and into early 50s, we grew up with this very pervasive diet culture. Back in the 80s, I can remember all of the adult women in my life, parents, teachers, aunts, friends, and my friends' parents, everyone seemed to be on a diet. It was just like the thing to do. Everybody wanted to get smaller, and you would walk down the grocery store aisles, and there would be all kinds of diet foods, low cal, low fat. I remember was a really big thing. You know how they do like the marketing for different types of foods, and they would put low fat right across things that were naturally low fat, like pretzels and things like that, sort of touting them as diet foods. And so many people bought into that kind of stuff. And I can remember even in high school when I went to high school in the 90s, there was a lot of pressure just globally for women to be thin. If you would look at some of the supermodels, if you recently watched the new America's Next Top Model documentary, you know what I'm talking about. But there were a lot of people who were really praised for being super, super skinny. And so that was sort of like the ideal that a lot of us were looking at. And as a young woman growing up that way, I always felt very lucky that I was naturally thin. I was never really somebody who exercised when I was growing up. I tried a few different sports. It just wasn't my thing. And I didn't really worry about what I ate because I didn't need to. But then as I got older, I found that I couldn't do that anymore. I couldn't just eat whatever I wanted and keep that naturally thin physique. And so I jumped on the diet and I did everything. I did Atkins, Weight Watchers, keto, like all the things. I did all the things. And I also would try different supplements. I can remember being on diet pills for a little while and they made me super, super sick. I wanted to keep that body that I had when I was like a teenager, which is just so unrealistic. Eventually, I developed a love for fitness, and it was really kind of by trial and error and trying different things. I ran for a little while after my daughter was born, but didn't really stick with that. I was just sort of like floundering. I didn't really know how to lose weight. And that was really my focus at that point. And I eventually found some programs that were really high intensity cardio. I was doing that along with some meal plans that really weren't enough food for supporting that type of activity. So I did lose weight. Again, that was my focus, but I also had very low energy. I was hungry all the time. I got a lot of headaches, like just those kinds of things because I was so focused on losing weight that I wasn't so focused on, supporting my body and making sure that I was actually healthy. Now that I'm older, and I also, because I've had such an interest in fitness, I've been through a lot of different education programs. I got a certification in personal training. I got a certification in nutrition, and so I'm much more knowledgeable now than I had been way back when. And I've learned that strength training is really, really important, and eating enough to support your activities is absolutely essential. What's changed for me is that I've added in strength training, and I'm talking like lifting heavy and making sure that I'm eating enough to support that so that I can get muscle growth and that I have enough energy to get through my runs, to get through my lifting sessions, and just to get through my days because obviously they're very busy, and I don't want to be just like dragging myself through life. So I actually eat more than I did before. I do work out a lot, but it's not like I'm doing, 2 hours in the gym every day. I'm doing usually like a 30 to 40-minute lifting session 3 days a week, and I'm doing my running exercises, my running workouts 3 times a week. And I'll get into more about like what that schedule looks like a little bit later, but just wanted to sort of lay out what that looks like because it's very, very targeted. It's very specific to what I'm looking to do, which is to get stronger. And so my running sessions make me a stronger runner, and my lifting sessions help me to build muscle, which is so important for so many things as we get older. Density, mobility, preserving the muscle that you already have, because we do start to lose muscle as we get older. And the more that we can retain, the healthier we're going to be. I'm not going to sit here and say that aesthetics aren't nice. I like having muscle tone. I like that I've been able to maintain my size and my shape for several years. But I think the thing that I'm most focused on now is number one, being able to stay as active as I am is really important to me. And I can't stay active if I'm not active. So, just really focused on that. But also, knowing that as I get older, if I continue with the lifestyle that I have right now, I'm not going to struggle to get up and down out of chairs or, those kinds of things that you see older people sometimes struggle with, and the mobility issues and the aches and pains. I'm not saying I'm not ever going to have those things, but it definitely reduces the likelihoods. After 45, muscle matters more, recovery matters more, and strength training and building muscle really becomes protective and not necessarily about losing weight or creating a certain shape in your body. Again, it's nice, but it is really important to think about long term health as well. And there is something really, really empowering about getting stronger. And building strength also builds confidence, and it's not necessarily tied to the visuals. It's really, for me, tied to the fact that I'm able to lift things that are heavy and progressively heavier. And of course, when I say heavy, what's heavy for me may not be heavy for you, but I focus on lifting weights that are feel heavy to me, and I like to challenge myself. And so living up to that challenge and actually doing it has really built my confidence. And then on top of that, just keeping those promises to myself, promising myself that I'm going to do 3 lifting sessions a week, 3 running sessions a week. When I do that and I stick to that plan, it shows me that I'm dedicated to myself. And that really helps to build my confidence as well. As you've probably noticed, I have signed up for a lot of races recently, and doing, 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons. And for those goals, I'm still only focused on the actions that will get me there. So all of that training will lead to better outcomes when I do those races. But for example, when I run the 10K at the Princess weekend at Walt Disney World this weekend, I am not focused on how fast I can go or what time I'm going to complete it in. I'm focused on having fun. And I'm focused on really bringing all of that training so that I can enjoy my run and not worry about crashing out or getting injured, or, not that those things necessarily won't happen, but they're much less likely because I've trusted my training. And I just want to tie this back to action goals because I know I've talked about this previously, but it's really the action goals that help to build the confidence and to really help you to start building habits, because that's really what it's all about. A race or a certain number on the scale, or, hitting a certain pace when you're running, or being able to lift a certain number of pounds when you're lifting. All of those things are nice, but those if you set those goals and then you don't reach them, you can really become, feeling defeated, deflated. I'm never going to be able to do this. Why am I bothering? Like all of those kinds of thoughts start to creep in. But when you focus on the action goals, then when you do them consistently, that's when you start to feel good about things. So instead of me going in and saying, you know what, I'm going to run 3 miles this morning in 30 minutes, which is I've never done that before. So that would be really hard for me. Instead, I just say, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to run 3 miles. And that really makes a difference for me mentally because that's what I do. I've kept my promise to myself. I don't feel like I've let myself down. And that's just basically how it works. So I set my action goals like this. I run 3 times a week and I have a schedule that I follow. So I usually do on Tuesdays, I typically do a speed session. Thursdays is a really nice, easy run just to build my endurance. And then on the weekend, either Saturday or Sunday, is a long run. And I run those with intervals. So I usually do a minute of running and then 30 seconds of walking. If you're familiar with the Galloway method, that's what I do. And that has really helped me to maintain longer distances. And just as an aside to that, I can remember when I first started doing that, feeling like maybe I wasn't a real runner because I was walking some of it. And that is such BS. Like I'm still running. I'm still, I've done that for half marathons, marathons, lots of training runs. And it's still challenging, and it really does help me to go that longer distance and feel good about it. So anyway, that's my running schedule. And then I do 3 lifting sessions a week. I have there's an app that I use by a trainer who is just amazing, and so I follow her workouts and I can track my weights. And so that's a big piece of strength training, is that you want to increase the load. So that would either be adding weights or adding reps to the sets that you're doing. So if you have questions about that, feel free to reach out and I can help you with what that looks like. But essentially for me, I'm just working to get a little bit better every time, but not setting any specific number goals. And then as far as nutrition goes, I'm trying to support all of the activity that I'm doing. So it's really prioritizing protein because that absolutely helps with maintaining muscle and building more muscle. And the other thing that was a little bit tricky at first was making sure that I was getting enough calories and carbs, because as a runner, we really need carbs. And as someone who, for a very long time, was very restrictive with carbs, and I even cut them out almost completely for a while, that was sort of a new way of thinking for me. But now I'm like eating a Pop Tart in the morning before I go for a run, and chowing down on Swedish fish during my runs just to, give me the carbs and the energy that I need. And that was definitely a shift for me. But again, it's all supporting my training and it's supporting my energy levels, which is really essential. Speaking of energy, the other thing that is very important for us as we get older is sleep. And I've talked about this before. When I was younger, I used to sacrifice sleep all the time. And it's just not something that I'm willing to sacrifice anymore because I just don't feel as good. If I don't get enough sleep, I don't feel as good. And then my runs suffer, all of my fitness suffers, but also my work suffers, my relationships, because I'm just not myself when I don't get enough sleep. So that's really, really important too. I do prioritize my sleep and I really focus on getting 7 to 8 hours every night. Being consistent with these habits might sound boring, and I get that. And sometimes it is boring. Sometimes I don't feel like doing these things, or sometimes there are other things that I would rather be doing, but staying consistent with this has really made a difference in my health, my energy, and just how I feel about myself. My confidence is, I did a whole video on that recently. It's just so much stronger because I trust myself and I keep my promises to myself. Strength is built by those boring, repetitive actions. I'm not necessarily getting stronger when I'm running a race. I'm getting stronger while I'm training and building that up. I'm not necessarily getting stronger when I lift a heavier weight. I was getting stronger as I was building up to that. You see what I'm saying? So it's really in those repeated habits and actions that are going to build that strength. And I'm really looking forward to this race this weekend. My husband and I are running together. We have costumes planned together, and we're hoping that the weather is going to hold out because the forecast is looking a little bit iffy for this Saturday. We're supposed to get rain, possibly thunderstorms, hoping that that won't happen. And just knowing living here in Florida that the weather changes so easily and often the forecast doesn't match what actually happens. So fingers crossed that's the case. But I am just really looking forward to having a nice, fun, easy race. It's a Disney race, so there are all kinds of characters on the course, lots of people, lots of runners who are in costume, lots of runners who maybe it's their first race. The course gets very narrow and you've got like hundreds of people jammed in there. So I'm just going into this race knowing that I can finish it, I can have fun, and trusting my training. So if you are somebody who is in your late 40s and you're still trying to train like when you were in your 20s, you're trying to look like you did when you were in your 20s, that might not be realistic. And I think it's really, really essential to take a step back and just really look at what it is that you're doing and how you're feeling. And the other thing to really keep in mind is that we really do need to build and preserve muscle as we get older. So find something that you like. Weight training is typically what is recommended, but there are other ways that you can build strength. You can do Pilates, you can do yoga. There are other modalities that you can try. What is really, really important, and I used to tell my clients this all the time, is that you find something that you actually enjoy so that you'll keep doing it. And that doesn't mean that you're always going to be excited to do it, but most of the time you're doing it, you're looking forward to it, you're okay with taking the time to move your body in that way. I love running and I've been really, really enjoying it. But again, there are days where I don't feel like it. And we've had some cold spells here in Florida. This morning I had to bundle up again for my run. I had to put a jacket on and gloves and cover my ears. And I hate that. I moved to Florida so that I could run in the sunshine with a tank top and shorts. And that's just not always the case. But it's just an example of me loving running, but also hating running and not wanting to do it. But most of the time, I really look forward to it and I really enjoy it. And so finding something that you enjoy doing is really essential, but there needs to be some sort of strength training component. So if you are a runner or a cyclist or a swimmer, or you really enjoy doing certain types of cardio, that's awesome. That's so great. And I would never say don't do that because, again, I'm a runner and I really enjoy that. But it needs to be supplemented with some sort of strength training because it's going to make you better at whatever activity it is that you do. And it's also going to help you as you get older to maintain mobility, to be able to get up and down easily, and just live a fuller life. Just remember that you don't need to shrink yourself or become a certain size to build your confidence. You can build that within the next few days by creating a plan and sticking to it and seeing that you can start building those habits. And really at this stage of the game, it's really about supporting your body and making sure that you're really taking care of yourself. This is a form of self-care. It's probably one of the most important forms of self-care is getting the nutrition that you need and getting the movement that you need to really live a full life. For me, training for strength has really changed the way that I see myself. And it's really helped me to feel like just a stronger woman overall, not just with what I can do with my body, but mentally knowing that I have committed to things and followed through on them. I'm setting an example for my family and my kids. I'm setting an example for anybody who pays attention to anything that I post here. And, I'm really building a solid, sustainable future for myself and my health. I'm incredibly grateful for what my body can do. And I'm very aware that there are people who aren't able to work out, run, even walk. And that's really something that I take very seriously because I've had health issues that kept me down for a while. I'm a cancer survivor. I've had multiple surgeries. And every time that happened and I wasn't able to work out, I missed it. And I was angry that I couldn't do it. So now that I'm very healthy, I feel really good. My body is strong, and being able to do these things is a huge privilege to me. And I would encourage you to look at it that way too. And you might have heard that, there's a saying that people say, like, it's not that you have to work out, it's that you get to work out. And I think of that often because there are times where I just don't want to do it. And I remind myself, you know what, there are people who would like be thrilled to have this opportunity to be able to do this. And I know that I have been in that situation myself. So it is true. It is a privilege to be able to do that. And so if you are able to move your body in such a way that you can exercise, and you can lift weights and you can run or do whatever it is that you enjoy, please do it. It makes such a difference for your mental health. It makes a difference for your physical health as well, but it really is something that you can learn to love and enjoy and really build your confidence and self-esteem. If you're over 45 and you're still working out and eating to shrink yourself, I really hope that this encourages you to shift your focus. Strength builds confidence in ways that numbers never will, really. And so if you're watching this and this resonates with you, I would love to hear what you're training for right now. And I'd love your feedback on what I've shared today.